Hi
Yeah.
guys, it's Steph Sayfie Aagaard here. Steph says, I am thrilled to be hosting another book chat for Books and Books. We love those books and books. And Coconut Grove and Bell Harbor Shops, Coral Gables, they're everywhere. They always have our favorite books. Well, tonight we're excited to bring on one of the authors of the amazing books, which I have right here. Yes, you know who he is. He's the original celebrity blogger, media personality. He's got all the gossip. He's known for having tons of celebrity friends. He's got the scoop. We've got him right here, Perez Hilton. Come on and tell us about your new book, TMI, My Life in Scandal.
Hello. Well, first of all, I like to be honest and I always keep it real. My book came out and I did not want it to come out at
Okay.
first, because I really wanted to do book signings in person. I wanted to be able to be there in Miami and hug every single person that bought a book and thank them because it's just insane to me that I've been doing what I do now for 16 years and
Wow.
I'm still here. Thank God, because the world changes so much, and especially the internet and social media is evolving so quickly. I have outlasted not just most of my peers, but I've outlasted a lot of the celebrities that I was initially talking about back in the day. I don't even think I've mentioned this at all doing promo for my book, but I look back at my first year of blogging, and I was talking a lot back then about like Anna Nicole Smith, rest in peace. I
Right.
was talking a lot back then about that wrestler China, rest in
Right.
peace. I was talking a lot then about Star Jones because she was getting married and there was all that drama with her on The View. And now, what's Star Jones doing these days? I have no idea. So
Very
the fact that
true.
I get to have this event with people from my hometown, I am so grateful and truly appreciative because I know that people are busy and even busier than normal, and you're at home and you're with your kids and you're homeschooling or you're not, and you could be doing anything right now. So if you're watching me yap, thank you.
Well, these are your fellow Miamians, like you said. You were born and raised here, and I'm sure you have a lot of favorite spots. Is there anything that you reminisce about, or remember, or you crave being out in LA that you want from Miami?
I mean, when I think of Miami, the first thing I think about is my family. They're all there, with the exception of my mom and my sister, who are here with me in Los Angeles. And then almost tied, like literally neck and neck, is the food. I grew up a big fatty, so I love to eat. And I feel really blessed that last year I was able to take my mom to Miami with my kids. Uh, I talk about it in the book. Last year, I did not think that last year could get any worse or be topped, but this year did. Last year was very awful also because my mom had cancer and
Oh
her
boy.
boyfriend died. And her
Oh,
boyfriend lived with us, and he was her boyfriend of a decade plus. So she is cancer free now. She had her
thank goodness.
treatment and operations, and was going through a depression. And I had like secondhand depression, because if you live with somebody who's depressed, that can
Of
make you
course.
depressed too. And I, yesterday I was talking to one of my friends, and a mutual acquaintance of ours passed away of a drug overdose.
Mm.
And my friend did something really courageous. She sent him a letter saying, if you don't stop this, you're going to die.
Oh
And I
my.
just saw that in the press, and I texted her and I said, I want to thank you for doing that, because many people wouldn't. They would be
No.
afraid or whatever it might be, but you did that. And I just think you're an amazing human being, and thank you. And I just, and she's like, and I would do it for you if you needed it. And I said, well, thank God my vices are work and food.
Mhm.
And I feel like so many of us are programmed at a young age, and it takes decades upon decades to unpack and deprogram. But so many times, like last year and this year, I fall back into my old habits and safety and comfort eating and overeating and all that stuff. And last year when my mom was depressed and her boyfriend died, I started eating and overeating, and I did something different. I started eating and overeating, and then also spending and overspending.
Easy
and
to
I
do
went,
when you're at home.
well, I just did not want to. If anybody watching remembers me in 2019, I also started dyeing my beard all sorts of crazy colors. And what I realized, yes, like that one, yes. That's a peach color. What I realized when the year was over was it was such a bad year. I did not want to be living my life. I did not want to be present. That's why I was eating and overeating. That's why I took 6 vacations in 6 months. And
Wow.
one of those vacations was to Miami. And we went in March, which meant that we could go to the youth fair. So, growing up in Miami, we would always go to the youth fair like 5 times, like 6 times. We would go so much, and I ate all of my favorites. You have to have the elephant ear because they don't. Yes, they don't make the elephant ears on the West Coast fairs. It's only an East Coast thing.
Interesting.
And I took my mom. This was really a beautiful, sentimental moment for me. I talk about in my book how my dad passed away when I was very young. And I did not even know this. I took my mom on one of the nights that we were in Miami to go eat at our favorite Asian restaurant. And you know which one I'm talking about if you're a local Miamian. There's only one, the best, Tropical Chinese.
I knew you were going to say that.
It's the best. So I took my mom to Tropical Chinese, and she said that the last time she had been there was the day before my dad died. And I didn't know that. And she had never been since, and I was really happy that I got to take her. And of course, every time we go to Versailles or La Carreta, whenever we're in Miami, there's no good Cuban food in Los Angeles. No, well, there's one. There's a good Cuban bakery called Portos, and that's really good. But they do serve food to eat there and to take out. But they're like the only good one. Like you would think in LA there'd be more than one good Cuban place, but there's not.
Exactly. And what's your favorite dish? What do you love? What does your mom make you that you can't live without?
Well, my mom does not cook. I don't know of course you always have to have rice and beans. And maybe like picadillo. I love picadillo with arroz y frijoles, and I always have to have a dessert. Whether it be flan or tres leches, or now with the holidays coming up, mi tía would always make us buñuelos, and you'd have the entire roast pork for Christmas Eve, and you'd have yuca, and oh my God, so many memories. Like food is one of the biggest things of my childhood and my whole life, really.
It's a comfort, it's whether you're reading a book or you're hanging out with friends. What do you do that around? Food. You plan everything. I feel like we plan everything around a meal. Where are we eating dinner? Where are we having lunch? It's part of everybody's life, but it also makes you feel good. So, and especially in Miami where we have such amazing food. So we're very lucky here. And like you were saying, it's a time where a lot of people are at home and they're excited to be watching tonight, this book chat. But it also really was kind of the perfect time to do this book because we were all at home. And I was a voracious reader, Perez. I was reading like nonstop because we weren't doing anything else. We were working and we were at home, and when we needed an escape, we went to a book. And that's really how we started doing this with Books and Books, because so many people were reading. But what made you want to tell your story now? Because I'm sure it wasn't the COVID time. What made it now that you wanted to get this out?
I think one of the most important lessons in life is to just listen to the universe. And that's what I did, because I like to be fully transparent. I was working on another book that every publisher said no to. But during the process of writing that book, my co-authors on this one reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to write an autobiography? That's what we do. It's our forte. We've co-written many, with a lot of famous people. And I said, I don't know. I'm working on this other book that I'm very passionate about. That other book was a health and wellness book. And I understand why this one was an easier sell because tons of celebrities are mentioned in it. And I now am considered nostalgia. You know, the beginning of my career was so long ago. I'm vintage now. I'm like an old piece of clothes. It's crazy. But I think one of the reasons why I never pitched that idea myself, I never led with that idea, was because I was always afraid of releasing an autobiography, because if you put it out there and it's a big flop, then that's a reflection on you. You know, people hate it if it doesn't sell well. And I thankfully viewed the book release very realistically. I was prepared, and I expected. I said this in interviews. I expected the book to flop. Okay. I set myself up for failure. And then when it came out and people really loved it and it got a ton of press all over the world, that blew my mind, especially because, you know, I don't even have a publicist. I was just using with the book's publicist, and a lot of the publicity, they just came to me. Like, of course we wanted to do with Perez, and that was very flattering.
Great. That's amazing. It says a lot. It really says a lot, you know, and you're right. People love the celebrity. They love to listen to it all and hear what's going on and the gossip, if you will. And you really started that, like you said, a long time ago in this world of social media and blogging. May not be long for everybody else, but when you think about it, you know, you really started off with the Perez Hiltons and with the, you know, and it seems like it's forever now. And you didn't really have an office, so you really set up shop in a coffee bean, in a coffee house, where I read that you were there before they even opened at 5:30 in the morning using their Wi-Fi, right? Because you couldn't afford it in your apartment. But people sought you out there, right? Publicists and celebrities, they came and found you.
And lawyers to serve me with lawsuits.
Lovely.
You know, it's so crazy that I was doing that for a long time, and it kind of became iconic. Like, that was my Schwab's. If anybody remembers the history of Hollywood, there used to be this iconic soda fountain / place where all of the gossip reporters would meet up. Hedda Hopper and Luella Parsons and celebrities would go there. And the same thing kind of happened when I began blogging. I would have tons of celebrities come and either just chat with me that were my friends or confront me because I wrote something that they didn't like. And I did that for 2 years. And eventually it got to a point where I just didn't feel safe anymore.
They can find you easily.
Yeah. Well, I did have a couple of crazies, like this one Scientologist person making a big scene and to-do. I'm like, you blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what? So eventually I moved and I stopped working in public, but I look back on that period of time very fondly. And, you know, I remember that, like, I love seeing people that I am familiar with or friendly succeed. Like, working out of that coffee bean, eventually you start to notice and see the locals, like people that would come every day. And two of the locals, one that became a friend of mine. Well, they both are friendly. One is this very famous songwriter, Diane Warren, and the other one would come in every day, sit outside and play chess, was this guy named Red Foo, who then began the band LMFAO. And I'm like, oh my God, that's my buddy from the coffee bean who would play chess every day. So it's great to see you do well. I love that.
That is. And like you said, it's going back and remembering when, you know, it's like, I remember when, you know, you just sat there every day playing chess. You know, and speaking of all these celebs, I mean, I think you bumped into Lindsay Lohan there. She came to meet you there, right, on the way to a movie. And she really sought you out also for advice. I mean, a lot of celebrities, like I read, people in the music industry, sometimes you said they used you or sometimes they needed advice from you. What kind of advice would you give to them? I know you were doing music management for a while too,
Yeah.
but what kind of advice would you give to these guys?
Well, I still do that daily. Like I had an artist that I am mentoring just because I want to help. And a lot of musicians also really respect my ear and my history with music. I mean, right now, actually, I'll give you guys a quick tour. I'm in my bedroom. You're in bed with Perez.
I saw that.
I am surrounded by some of my most prized possessions, which are plaques that were gifted to me by singers. This one behind me is from the Jonas Brothers. Remember the Jonas Brothers?
Of course.
I love that one.
Joe, Kevin, and
that's from the Ting Ting. That's not my name. Up there's Eric Hutchinson. Here we've got one from Lady Gaga.
Of course.
Here we've got one from Justin Bieber.
Oh, wow. Love it.
This is from Taylor Swift with a handwritten note saying, "Darling Perez, my darling Perez."
Incredible.
Over here, we've got one from the Swedish act Icona Pop. And then the most special ones, this one down here is from Adele.
Amazing.
And up there is one that Amy Winehouse signed for me. Rest in peace.
Very close. You guys were very close, right? You and Amy for a while.
We were, yeah. So I love music, and today I had an artist message me saying, "Do you think this other artist stole my song or like copied me?" And I listened to it, and I said, "No." even though she did. And I think that's one of the things that artists love about me is I always keep it real. I'm always honest. And actually, speaking of Lindsay Lohan, when was it? Either September or October. I think in September or end of September, I messaged her because I still talk to Lindsay all the time. And I said, "Hey, I have a good idea for you. You should either do an Instagram post or a story or just send out a tweet congratulating Perez Hilton on her new documentary." And you know what her response to me was? She said, "Well, I haven't watched it yet." And I'm like, that's not the point. You don't need to watch it to congratulate her on releasing a new documentary.
Right.
Those two have a lot of history.
Yes.
As do the three of us.
So great. I love it. It's so funny because so many people that know this kind of information never really put it out like you did. And even though you've reported on a lot of people and told stories and reported different things, you also mentioned that you had some regret as well, because which was interesting to read about, and some of them accepted your apology, and some of them didn't. What really made it change? What made you change? And you said, "God, I feel bad about doing that or saying that." What was the impetus for that?
There was a few things. I think first, I started thinking about doing things differently when I began my health journey, and that started for me in 2008. Not to invalidate my life prior to getting healthy, but I can just explain it this way. The healthier I became, the happier I became. And that's not to say I was unhappy before, but I was just even happier. And I was having different thoughts, happier thoughts, different thoughts. So I started thinking already in 2008 of, maybe I shouldn't doodle those things anymore. Maybe I shouldn't give people these nicknames, all sorts of changes. But I was afraid of making those changes because by that point, I had already established myself and my name and my brand quite successfully by doing things a certain way. So I was almost paralyzed by fear. But then, going back to what I said a few moments ago, to just listen, that's kind of, it's a cliche, but it's something that I think about often because I watched Oprah growing up religiously. I still love Oprah. I consider myself I am an atheist, okay? If Oprah started a religion, I would join her church, okay? At the very last episode of the Oprah Winfrey Show, before she went off the air, not the one that it was like the big concert at the United Center in Chicago. It was her alone in the studio with an audience, and she was sharing everything she's learned in life. Every human being should go back and watch that. It is one of the most powerful and special hours of television history. And Oprah said, which still resonates with me, just listen. The universe has the answers for you, or God, or your gut, or your instinct, or your heart, whatever you want to call it. And when you don't listen, the universe will speak louder. And if you're still not listening, it'll smack you upside the head. And that's exactly what happens to me in the fall of 2010, 10 years ago now. Thank God we've never seen anything like this since. But in that fall, in a short period of time, there was at least 20 plus LGBTQ teenagers that died by suicide.
Nice.
And there was this journalist named Dan Savage who created this very simple campaign called It Gets Better, which the whole concept of it was older folks making videos talking about their journey and their experience and targeting it towards young LGBTQ plus people. And I found out about the It Gets Better campaign the same day that Dan Savage launched it, because I work in the media and that's my job. I need to be plugged in and knowing everything that's happening at all times. So I was the first public figure / personality to make an It Gets Better video. And I thought, this is a very dark time. I'm doing something positive to shed light. But the response that I got to my It Gets Better video really shook me to my core, because in a time of darkness, when I thought I was doing something positive, the overwhelming majority of comments were attacking me, saying, how dare you make an It Gets Better video when you are a bully and a hypocrite and part of the problem? And that was the brick outside the head. That shook me to my core, because I had always just been deluding myself, and really disassociating myself in a loco way, like Jekyll and Hyde. I programmed my brain for 6 years in order to allow me to say and do everything the way that I was doing it. I would just say things to myself like, oh, it's not me. It's just a character that's saying these things. So if people don't like me, they don't really like me. They're like this character, okay? They don't know the real me. Exactly. But at that moment, I had to just stop and say, well, who is doing it? Who is, it's me. And that really, it was an earth-shattering moment. And some people on my team even were afraid of me making that change. But I said, I don't care. I don't care if things go downhill, if I lose this, that, and the other. This is the right thing to do. And I did. And a lot of people were skeptical. And a lot of people still are skeptical 10 years later. And that's fine. It's been a big journey. And I've just gotten to a point now where I realize that just by the nature of my job, which is a person who shares news and has opinions on it, many people look down upon that. And that's fine. I think that you can share the news and have opinions on it and do it in a way that's not mean, nasty, cruel, or hurtful. But a lot of these people that you're talking about, celebrities, musicians, they have big egos and are very sensitive. And if you say something like, I don't like, Perez Hilton's new song, well, I worked really hard on that song. I'm very proud of that song. If you don't like that, you should keep it to yourself. Why are you adding that to the universe? I'm like, dude, I didn't say you're this, that, or the other. I just said I don't like the song. That's it. That's right. And a lot of young people, they really discourage people sharing opinions that go against their own. And I don't get that, like I don't have to agree. Like even yesterday here in Los Angeles is a mess right now, let me tell you. But yesterday there were a lot of people protesting outside of the mayor of Los Angeles's home. And I may not agree with the protesters, but I will definitely support and vehemently defend their right to protest. And same with people that I don't agree with in any way. Like people should be able to express themselves, and like young people, not all of them, but a lot of young people and college people, like it used to be that back in the day you would welcome those with opposing points of views to try to learn from them. But now college campuses want to keep out people with opposing points of views that are lecturers or whatever it may be. And that's just crazy to me.
It's wild. It's funny to see how things change, even with social media. Before people would just post pictures, and now people are, giving their opinions, like you're saying. They're really giving their opinions like you are, or they're hiding behind, a post, or because they really aren't in front of there. So they say whatever they want, being bullies or whatever it is. But, and it's interesting to see over the years how and actually, what I really loved in your book was how you did year by year. You kind of summed it up on a page. Let me find one of those pages, which I loved, and then kind of told us what the gossip was. It was like 2012 or just news. Whitney Houston passed away. Drake and Chris Brown get into fight. And so that was an interesting thing because it kind of brought you back to like, okay, what was happening this year? And then you told us a story of something that was happening with you, Ariana Grande, Lady Gaga, which she was a dear friend, but things happened. And I mean, that's a really interesting story because you knew her before.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I love music and I love supporting artists. And I had established that from the very beginning of my website. That's one of the reasons why Amy Winehouse gave me that platinum plaque. Like I helped her get a lot of attention before anybody knew her in America. And back in the day, in 2006 and 2006, when I first started talking about Amy, there wasn't any social media. I don't think Twitter existed. There was no Instagram. There was no YouTube. Maybe it might have been like the beginning of YouTube. So I got really lucky in that I was a big fish in a small pond, and a lot of people were reading me. So I really helped to turn on a lot of people to Amy Winehouse, to Katy Perry, to Lady Gaga. But I've also shared and championed a lot of musicians that don't end up becoming well known. I would have still been friends with Lady Gaga if she had not been successful. Right. But, so much time has passed now since she and I had our very epic falling out, that thankfully I have let go of the hurt that she caused me. And I just look back at that time now with pride because I was able to help her. And she did credit me repeatedly, both privately and publicly, both within her label and on multiple interviews. And I saw something in her before most everybody else. I mean, I remember even the very first post that I ever wrote about her on my website, I said, "This girl reminds me of Madonna." And then that was like one of the big things that happened later down the road, like everybody comparing her to Madonna. I also now, I have a lot of empathy and compassion and understanding for what she was going through at the time, because people might not remember, but when she first started, I was already very well known by 2008, and she was an unknown. So I had 4 years to get used to being known and being written about. And she got very famous very quickly, and her whole world changed. And she was also dealing with substance abuse issues, which she has talked about herself since then. So, like that old saying, I'm full of cliches tonight. The old saying, and it probably applies to me too in the first few years of my career. That old saying, hurt people hurt people. That does not excuse or justify that behavior, neither mine nor hers. I definitely am accountable and hold deep regret and shame for a lot of the things that I did. But in a way, also, 2020 has seen me truly stop caring about how people perceive me. Because for the longest time, I kept hoping that the public could see my growth and could see how I've changed. And I've realized this year that most people don't care, or they're not going to see me. They only remember the first person they saw all those years ago. And they're going to keep me there stuck as if I was in a jail cell unless some major things happen. And I think this is true, shallow but true. One of the major things that could change everything is great, ginormous success. For example, if I, which I do, I act as well, but like, let's say I got a sitcom where I was playing a lovable character on a sitcom, and it wasn't just a show on TV, because there's a lot of sitcoms, but if it became a pop culture sensation and a global smash, great success almost always absolves all sin.
Right.
I mean, look at freaking.
It's true.
Look at Mel Gibson. I mean, if Mel Gibson can still have a career all these years later, after all the awful, horrific, vile, disgusting things he did and said, then, I'm always going to be around.
Yeah. Sometimes people want to remember what they want to remember. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's very true in so many different ways. Even you're right. Somebody who did something terrible, you're like, oh, I want to remember them like this, so with the good times. Or, some people like that evil. Oh, I want to remember him for the bad things he did. So you're right. It's tough to get away from, because people are going to follow their heart or follow, what they want to. But it's interesting, because I loved reading this and reading about all your stories, and because you really had a lot. I mean, if there's one story or one moment or a wild interaction, because I know we got to wrap up. We're talking for a long time. I love it. What would it be? What would the one crazy story be that you'd tell us?
Well, I thought for sure. Yeah, I thought for sure that me and Lady Gaga would be dominating the headlines when I released the book. But surprisingly, what got even more press than that was my wild night with John Mayer, where we ended up making out with tongue for 5 minutes, and Jessica Simpson was there. And I don't know if any young people are watching, so I'll keep it family friendly, but it was very, very wild, and I talk about it all in the book.
Yes, I read it. And that's what it is. It's a lot of inside scoop, a lot of detail, and actually I thought you were going to say the John Mayer, because it's a shocker. It's a shocker to hear those things. But
what I love about the book too is that, yes, I dish the dirt, I spill the tea, as the kids say, but I think it appeals to many different people. I mean, if you're somebody from Miami, I talk about those early years in Miami in the book. I talk about going to Belen Jesuit Preparatory School and what that experience was like, and how that formed and informed me, both for the good and the bad. If you're a Latino, if you're somebody who struggled with your weight growing up, if you are somebody who wants a career in entertainment, if you're somebody who is dreaming of being an entrepreneur, I share all of my secrets, my mistakes, my story that I think, is the American dream in some ways. Like, my parents left Cuba, started over again in Miami with nothing, and I am indebted to them. And I truly believe that I would not have been as successful as I have been if I were not the child of Cuban immigrants, because they instilled in me that Latino work ethic, that Cuban DNA, that you have to work harder than everybody else. Nothing in life is ever just yours. You have to work hard for it. And I definitely instill that in my kids. I talk about being a dad in the book and how I incorporate my past and my upbringing and my culture with my children. Like, we only speak Spanish at home. That's their first language, and that's very important to me. And even though I'm not living in Miami anymore, that old saying, you can take the boy out of Miami, but you can't take the Miami out of the boy.
Well, it's very true. I told you, even when I went up to Boston, I'm like, I'm a Miami girl. I wore skirts in Boston. I'm like, I don't care if it's cold. This is how I dress. Well, I know, speaking about that, we wanted to see if the audience wanted to ask some questions. Let's see here. Ask a question. We have it. Okay. Are you going to do another children's book? That's interesting.
Oh. I wrote, this is actually my fourth book, which is crazy. I wrote a children's book before my firstborn came into the world, and I dedicated it to my future children. Hope to see you soon. And my son was born 2 years after that. The book is called The Boy with Pink Hair, and it is so special and dear to me. I had a book signing at an event at Books and Books when it came out. So I want to thank them for being so kind to me throughout the years. Books and Books is amazing. And I would love to do another children's book. I'm open. I'm just listening to the universe and to whatever opportunity presents itself.
And speaking of that, we had another question about another book. They wanted to know a little bit about that health and wellness book, if you're actually going to keep going and publish it.
You know what? I hadn't even thought about self-publishing. That's always an option.
It is.
Because I really think that I have, like Oprah. Well, not like Oprah. I'm not here to diss anybody. Oprah has struggled maybe more than I have when it comes to her weight. And I have struggled with it a lot as well. But I feel like I have had a good grasp on it for more. Does that make sense? I love Oprah. Don't take it the wrong. Meaning, Oprah's had a lot of setbacks. Maybe she's had more setbacks than me, but I've learned a lot along the way about what that means to be healthy. For example, I am so freaking proud that over the last 4 weeks, I had just one cheat day. That was on Thanksgiving.
That's amazing.
Thanksgiving. And an old me would have just it would have been Thanksgiving week, all week long, like the day before Thanksgiving, the day after, Saturday, Sunday as well. Listen, I probably would have had leftovers or indulged a little bit more, but like I said, this year has sucked. And during the first lockdown, I went back to my old habits and I gained a lot of weight.
It's easy during that time because everybody was home. I mean, that was all there was to do.
And the gyms were closed and it felt traumatic and it was just insane and wild. And I gained 42 pounds in 3 months. That was
wow.
So now I'm working so hard to undo all the damage that I did.
Good for you. Good for you. Well, one last, well, not really a question, but it was interesting how you started the book. A quote: "No matter how much of an insider I ever become or am, I'll still always be an outsider." So that was,
Yeah.
I thought it was very interesting how you started the book that way.
Well, it's true. I mean, I know that not only am I incredibly disliked, but I'm also very hated. And I know that that closes a lot of doors for me. I know that I've had opportunities taken away from me or not even presented to me because of who I am and my past. It's kind of like my big scarlet letter that I will forever have to wear. Or, like everybody has baggage. Every single person has their baggage. Mine is just very visible and very heavy. But everybody has baggage. Not a single one of you watching right now is perfect or the best person in the world, okay? That concept doesn't exist. Everybody has their light and their shadow. Everybody is perfectly imperfect.
And that's what makes the world go around, right? And that's what makes it exciting. Because if we're all the same, if we're perfect, then it would be boring.
But, not only have I stopped really caring for people to see me in any way this year, but as I am soon going to be turning 43, like I really finally feel at peace with myself and comfortable in my own skin, fat rolls and cellulite and everything. And I no longer have this obsession. Like I don't have to have abs. That would be nice, but it's now it's about being healthy for me. It's not about having abs. It's about being healthy and just loving life, which I do, and being so grateful that I can support my family and provide for them after all these years, because so many people were let go of their jobs this year. So I do not take that for granted. I'm so blessed that one person watched this tonight, or two. I don't even know how many people watched. Thank you. Like I call the people that support me my fram, F-R-A-M, because that is what they are to me. To me, fram are friends and family that are for life, because some friends and some family are not for life. Some friends and some family are toxic and they need to be cut out of your life. But my fram is forever. And some of them have been with me 16 years, 15 years, 14 years, 10 years.
And that's a long time. No, I think that's amazing. And that's it's a good way to wrap it up too. You have Feel Peace, you have your fram, and your book. You got it all down here too, which is amazing. And it's available at Books and Books. So
signed copies.
Signed copies, exactly. Can't sign them in person, but at least you can get a signed copy. So thanks for being on Books and Books chat tonight. And I'm sure you'll be back in Miami when everything is hopefully a little better and a little more normal.
I hope so. My mom needs to go back. My mom used to go back 3 or 4 times a year, and she hasn't been back since January, so she misses it a lot. So I hope to see everybody, and maybe I'll do a paperback release, and I'll have an event at Books and Books.
There you go. Well, take care, Perez. Thanks so much. Everybody was writing. Thank you. Take care and have a wonderful night.
Good night, everybody. Adios.